This last summer, I took a trip to Ireland, Scotland, and Norway. This trip was a chance for me to visit the homelands of ancestors generations foregone, to see if there was anything left for me to connect with or learn from. I went into the trip with open expectations and many questions. Would the imprint of my ancestors still exist? Would any of it feel familiar? How would my spirit feel being in these places, and what would my body know? In Ireland, we found gorgeous rolling hills of green, the softest earth and unrelenting cold and rain. The land energy was so forgiving, so heartful, and the people we found in places like Doolin were kind and welcoming. We were offered rides and personal tours, historical information, and the land even blessed us with a sunny day for exploring the breathtaking cliffs of Moher. My friends, Matt, Biddy, and I leaned into the grassy crags, the swirling ocean waves, and the soft energy of knowing in every cow's eyes. Moments of synchronicity and slowness. We thoroughly enjoyed quiet cabin life, giant rose bushes bracing through the rain, taverns full of music, and of course, Irish soda bread. In the not-as-sweet moments of Ireland, we also saw the underbelly of colonization in places like Dublin, a city like many others fostering this chaos. Dublin had the open green spaces intermixed with museums full of repenting Catholic paintings, trash streets, drunken tourists, and cab drivers spouting white supremacy. These parts were important too. Over-romanticization can lead to ignorance, and Ireland has a heavy-weighted history of religious persecution, stolen land, and subjugation. This was where I remained curious about my own ancestry and their story of leaving their colonized homeland to become colonizers in another. More on this as the story unfolds. After a week in Ireland's energy, I came to Scotland alone, my first solo travel ever. Day one, driving a rental car up into the highlands brought me to tears. Tall, mist-covered mountains rising up out of grasslands. It was this moment I knew I believed in giants with both reverence and perturbation. Driving through this land of giants alone, I felt watched, observed, and accountable for the spiritual respect I entered with. I felt they were asking my intentions and knew that would determine my experience on the Isle of Skye. I entered Portree in the fading light among heavy falling rain. I spent the next few days doing some of the hardest hikes of my life among unrelenting rain and wind, playing pan flute for the mountains and following the pulls of my intuition. I even got an applause for my mountain performance. I have never met a land both so hospitable and hostile. Formidable hikes with steep hairpin turns, sharp, towering rocks, paired with squelching mud and soft, spongy grasses. If you can brave it out for the sun, you'll soon be attacked by the midges. You'll compete for single-track roads full of wandering sheep and caravans through sheets of rain and mist. A very intense and also joyful place to be. The reverence never left me here. My last days were spent in Inverness. Clavacairn was one of the most spiritually active places I've ever been to. The trees and stones were very talkative, with 2,000 years of preserved magic. If you want to know the history of a place, ask the rocks. They are the record keepers. Most rocks want to hear your stories too, and this makes a beautiful offering. I spent the afternoon exchanging stories about the desert and learned much about the communion and rituals performed at the site. Inverness itself felt like a crumbling, forgotten city laid over something deeply magic. It felt as if I was walking in two different timelines at once. What really made this city for me was the kindness of the people. The innkeeper, the pedestrians, and some wonderful old women I met in a community cafe giving out free food and gentle hearts. I felt deeply close to my ancestors talking with these folks. It made me miss home. Soon, I was on a flight towards Oslo, the last leg of my trip, visiting my dear friend Christina and her kind family. After all the solo travel, company was very welcome, and it was a relief to have the days lovingly planned for me. Norway is slow-moving, relaxed, and polite. The naturescapes in the summer were alive with raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, lingonberries. We collected so many berries, my fingers were stained red on the walk back. I drank water straight from a stream for the first time, and it tasted so fresh. Vast collections of heather and twining butterflies lined the paths. I caught frogs and said hello to some Highland cows. The views were gorgeous and reminded me a lot of the town I grew up in Minnesota. I feel that Norway is a place where people really enjoy their lives, their families, and being outdoors. My days were full of sightseeing, museums, history, and catching up. I got to experience a lot more local life here, and being with Christina and her family brought a lot of warmth to my heart. It all felt easy and unrushed. We kept coming back to the Norwegian word koselig that happens to accurately describe my experience. Again, I was reminded of the people I know back home in the reserved speech and the open hospitality. This was such a theme of all the places I visited. While there wasn't much left physically of my ancestors, I was reminded that my lineage truly descended from these places, these people, and it shows. In many people, I would see my grandmother, a teacher from my childhood, my mom, almost as if they were walking there with me. It brought me to tears. Part of my hope for this trip was to confront the wound of self-colonization in my lineage. The choice by my ancestors to strip away culture, native tongue, traditions, and clothing in order to assimilate to whiteness. And although I wasn't raised with as much connection to culture as I would have liked, I also realized there was more there than I thought, maybe more than anyone knew. The mannerisms, the food, the spirit are all still there if you know what to look for. This trip has gifted me this understanding and ability to nurture those things. In threads of this journey, there have been opportunities for accountability, mirrors held up, and realizing just how powerful it is for me to choose a different path than my ancestors. It's hard to explain that bittersweet feeling. These places and this wisdom will live forever within my spirit. They've given me new context and understanding for the lineage work I continue to fulfill. My gratitude is endless.